Now, the Republicans claim they have a brilliant new idea. They're going to do a swap. They want to get rid of the Volcker rule, which is part of banking reform, which says that banks cannot do proprietary trading, take basically depositor money and gamble with it, which I'll explain in a little bit. Why do they want to take that away? They said, well, don't worry, we're going to propose a different rule that would limit the banks in other ways. And we'll also explain that in a minute. So now, first, before we judge whether they're on the level or not and actually want to regulate the banks and keep them in check, let's review the history of the Republicans on this issue. First of all, after the bailouts, did the Republicans want to regulate the banks at all? The out-of-control banks that we just had the bailout, or did they want to leave the rules exactly like they were and not regulate them and let them keep taking that risk so we'd have to keep bailing them out? Well, you be the judge, because only 3 Senate Republicans voted for the Dodd-Frank reform bill and 0 House Republicans did. None of them did. Now, we did set up, of course, a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to protect consumers from the banks. Now, were the Republicans in favor of that? They hated that agency so much, they say we refuse to not confirm anyone that Obama appoints for that, because we do not want consumers protected under any circumstances from the banks and our buddies, okay? Number 3, they want to defund the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commission. They want to give them less money so they cannot regulate the banks. Okay, so, gee, I wonder which way the Republicans are going on this. So let's go to what the Volcker rule does, and you tell me whether you think it makes sense to kill it. Quote, the Volcker rule bans proprietary trading, risky security bets that banks place for their own accounts rather than for their clients. It's designed to ensure that the government perks that banks enjoy, borrowing money at low rates from the Federal Reserve, guaranteeing their depositors against losses, do not subsidize risky speculation. In other words, don't gamble with our goddamn money. That's depositor money. Don't gamble with it. And what do the Republicans want to do? Go ahead and gamble with it, as long as you give us a cut of the proceeds, just a tiny little bit for our donations for our campaigns. The guy proposing this is Representative John Campbell from California. So what does John Campbell want to do in place? He says, no, it's okay, because I'm going to do stringent regulation on the banks as well, just in a different way. I'm going to break up the big banks if they get too big or they take too much risk. And I said, really? Okay, well, I'm all ears. Because from time to time, you'll have Chuck Grassley or Dave Camp or Walter Jones actually propose something because they got mad that the banks are also donating to Democrats. Or Walter Jones is an honest guy. He's crazy conservative, but he's an honest guy, right? So it'll happen like 1% of the time. So I said, okay, what's the regulation? Well, he says it's complicated, and he's got a couple of different provisions, but I'll give you one as an example. He says that the banks would be forced to shut down if their debt against default reaches 1% of debt. Now that sounds complicated, but it's really actually quite simple. That never happens. When Lehman went to bankruptcy and caused a giant worldwide financial collapse, they did not reach 1%. In other words, it's a standard that will never be met unless almost all the banks have already gone bankrupt. In other words, it's a trick. Of course it's a trick. You know what John Campbell was? He was a car dealer. You know that he voted for the bailout, voted for it, and then voted against regulation of the banks. In other words, give them our money, but don't regulate them at all. And the one thing he insisted was in the bailout provision was an exemption for car dealerships. Of course, from any oversight when it came eventually to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So bailouts, yes. Regulation, no. You want to protect consumers, not in the case of car dealerships. This Class Act now wants you to think, oh, I have your best interest in mind. I'm not trying to protect my banker buddies. I'm trying to protect you. Just let them keep gambling with your money. I don't think so, John. Look, one more thing on that. I mean, if you're a Republican and you think this John Campbell and these guys have your best interest in mind, I'm going to be generous and call you ignorant, okay? Because that's literally what you are. You're ignorant of their real intent. They get money from these banks, and then they do them giant favors like this one. Why would you want the banks gambling with your depositor money? Why would you allow them to do proprietary trading, their own trading, with funds that they get partly because of government guarantees? Why would you want that? That doesn't help you at all. John Campbell wants it because he gets a slice of the pie in campaign donations. They're playing you for a fool if you're a conservative and you vote for these Republicans against the bailouts. You don't know a thing, man, about these guys.